metaphysical teacher, guiding others through their spiritual journeys, helping them to connect on a deeper level. She calls on all seekers, healers, and souls yearning for truth to join in creating a more compassionate, awakened world. To learn more of what she offers and to experience the value of her teachings, visit kumaraacademy.com.
Living a life.
Think about it. Every hiring decision is a choice that can make or break a team, a culture, and even an entire company. So how do we make the right choice? Hi, I'm Dr. Mickey, and welcome to Inside the Mind of Hiring. Here we'll uncover the psychology and strategy behind effective hiring. Because the right fit isn't just about skill or experience. It's about understanding people, their motivations, their strengths, and the shadows of their shortcomings. Together, we'll tackle the tough questions. How do we look beyond bias? How do we find the qualities that make people not just qualified hires, but the right hires? This is about identifying leaders who drive success, lift morale, and actualize a company's vision. Inside the Mind of Hiring starts now.
Well, hello, everybody. This is Dr. Mickey Feinberg, and I'm here with my great host and partner, Dr. Pat. And today we're going to talk about adapting or selling yourself, if you're a job seeker, to a skills-based organization. Interesting concept, skills-based organization. Now we can say SBO, but you have to watch that I say HBO by mistake. I mean SBO. So I could make that mistake. So don't be careful and catch me when I'm doing it. But anyway, so it's for SBOs as well, because I want SBOs to be on their game when it comes to selecting longstanding candidates and successful contributory candidates to their organization, just like job seekers being able to promote themselves effectively to companies that have that kind of system. And so an SBO company what they have is they use a dynamic system that incorporates AI to continuously and proactively map and update people's skill and role requirements in connection with their now rapidly evolving changes in their needs and the challenges that they have. So, and they've been around actually since 2010. And since that time, since 2010, they were incorporating AI technology. But that's all been accelerating since 2018. These companies have increased in volume in terms of how many companies are practicing with those systems. And they've certainly increased the power of AI to help them in that endeavor. And what research has shown is SBOs outperform companies that remain focused on job titles because they can achieve better workforce agility, quicker role staffing, faster redeployment in reorganizations or in crises. This is because AI surfaces and anticipates transferable skills or inferred skills from a person's background, behaviors, and the experiences that they have before they join the company and after they join the company. These skill in connection with their needs again. So these skills-based systems actually increase the chances for employees to take on new roles or promotion opportunities because of decreasing needs for external or outside hiring. So, and they also do that they tell employees when their jobs, if and when their jobs are going to be automated so that they can, and the new jobs that they can pursue that require the skills they need to obtain. So pretty cool when you think about it. So SBO employees tend to be more enriched, they tend to be more engaged, and they tend to be more loyal. And companies that have adopted these systems are much better in their retention long-term retention of employees because of those reasons. But employees, it's a matter of if that you as an employee can adapt and be successful. On an SBO, you have to be willing, that's an important word, willing, and equipped for rapid adaptation and learning and applying transferable and learning new skills. So that's important to consider when you're opting for pursuing an SBO, and if an SBO is considering you as a qualified employee for their company. Now, so the questions I would ask: how should SBO screen candidates? How can job seekers prepare for promoting themselves for SBOs? And how will characters like an assessment psychologist like me size up an SBO candidate like that? So how do you respond to all that so far, Dr.
I love it. I love it. And I have one other thing, because with looking at skills in a skill-based organization, I just want to be very clear about something. Once upon a time, Dr. Mickey, we looked at this for the handful of organizations and jobs. Right. Once upon a time, not too long ago, by the way, I will say, that's what we did. We didn't really see the impact of skills-based learning and up-leveling by which it's needed today. You did a show, gosh, I don't remember when it was, but you were talking about your experience of one day going in your grocery store, and you walked in and there were all the people checking out. And then the next day you walked in and there were no checkers. And so when you're walking into an environment, you're thinking about skills-based. I just want this audience to know, I don't think anybody's exempt from paying attention to this topic.
No, nobody's exempt from it now.
Yeah.
It's all changing so rapidly.
It is.
So organizations want people that can adapt to that.
So how do we hold them accountable? I want you to talk about this too, because I know this is something you're going to cover today. One of the things that I always ask when I interview for producers is, we go through this about skills, but I ask them, something like, and Jessica does too, can we trust you to not just stay on top of the skills we're using here, but to be advanced in them so we can move the company forward? Everybody says yes. And I think there's one or two in the history that have done it, and Jessica's one of them. And and I think about that. And so for me now, when I'm looking at producers, I have to have a new measure because my field is changing rapidly. The good news for us is we have our own technology. But if you don't know how to use our technology, then are you keeping your hiring commitment? And for you, Dr. Mickey, you're hiring people at the top.
Right. Oh yeah, well, I'm hiring. Yes, I'm evaluating typically professionals, managers, and executives. Okay, what I never do is ask a question where somebody has to respond yes or no. So that's. And most sophisticated hiring managers get that. And you get that, Pat. I'm sure you do.
I do, but I always have a follow-up question. I mean, I love when they say yes. And then I say, great.
Yeah.
Can we come up with a contract and agreement for which skills you're going to look at each month?
Right.
And then they don't show up. They don't show up for the second interview.
Yes.
But you understand why this is now more important than ever.
Sure. So if you're a candidate, and you're a hiring manager, you can expect yourself and the candidate to ask a question like this, and for candidate to be answering them. People take a lot of pride in their resumes. So you want to ask candidates about their resumes, and expect to hear questions about your resumes that determine your current capabilities. They want to be able to sift through your capabilities, what you really have. And they want to know what the signs of transferable skills that you have. And they want to have signs of what your attitudes are for quickly adapting your skills to handle market changes, operational improvements, and new project challenges. So they're going to you should ask questions like this. Tell me about or hear questions like this. Tell me about a situation where you had to learn something new in a tight time frame. What was the situation? What did you do? And what was the outcome and impact of that? Another question could be, share a circumstance where you were designated as a subject matter expert. Heard of that term? For an impactful project. How did you play your role, and what did you and the project team accomplish? Another question could be, give me an example where you influenced a pivot or quick change in course. What did you do or say, and what was the result? You could also ask, and this is important for a cultural alignment, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago. What could inspire you about our company? And what do you want to achieve with us? What will engage you to have a longer term tenure here? Now that gets to the why, or your real intrinsic, your inner purpose and values. And to what extent that inner purpose and those values aligns with the company that you're interviewing for, or the SBO. How does it align with their why? So you can get a sense of culture that way. And one of the things that I didn't do is I didn't tell you some of the companies that have adopted the SBO systems. The SBO systems. They tend to be larger. They're IBM since 2010. IBM, Unilever, JP Morgan Chase, Siemens, Cleveland Clinic, and Walmart. So there are some companies that are really engaged in these practices, and they're real, and you've heard of them, and they're out there. And I'm sure there's moderate sized companies as well, and even some small companies that are adapting these systems right now at the present time. So I want to get back to the why, because I want to segue into what I'm looking for as an assessment or business psychologist. But first, before I do that, Pat, what do you think about those questions, those kinds of more open-ended questions that I know you ask after you ask the yes or no questions?
Yeah. Without them, Dr. Mickey, what do you have?
You don't know.
You don't. Not only do you not know, is unless you're the final decision maker, you don't even have enough to have a dialogue with your hiring team. I mean, my gosh, come on. The second part is the kinds of questions we now have to ask have to be deeper. They have to be more complicated questions. And you're gonna love this. I know you're gonna share a story about the weather company, but I have a friend that's in the news, right?
Right.
And they were telling me that they had to change their job description, and one of the things in one of their top people, right? News people, and they had to change it to say you must have an ability to detect what is real footage and what is AI.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend was like, "What? Who knows that?"
Oh my
No, I
goodness!
mean, it's like, who
really?
knows that? Yeah,
Right.
and it's like, and I said to him, well, clearly, I'm going to call him Joe. You need to create that job, because nobody that you have on your team over there, you weren't hired for that.
Right.
But this is what we're talking about now.
Yeah.
And if you're in the public, the bar is now raised.
Right.
It is raised.
Right.
You cannot recover from a bad weather report. I'm sorry, Dr. Mickey.
Well, the only way you can cover
not in New Jersey. You can in Washington State, but here it's different.
The only way you can recover, Dr. Pat, is if the weather was actually better than you predicted, a little better than or a lot better than you predicted it was going to be, especially if it was a potential disaster. But anyway, now that you're saying that, I just interviewed and assessed a candidate for a program executive role for the weather company that I've talked about before, that provides weather data and forecasts, for various important reasons. So the program that this candidate is responsible for is providing accurate and timely forecasts for organizations that are really important for them to protect their property, their operations, and the lives of their people and customers in some cases. And these predictions, weather predictions, even serve to save costs in some significant ways, and certainly to increase sales in significant ways. They expose sales opportunities that can be taken advantage of proactively by these companies. So I told him, after reviewing his resume, I told him that his resume made him appear like an extreme, really talented, highly skilled, and sophisticated job hopper, real free agent type job hopper. So, I mean, I'm sure you've heard that term. That's somebody that hops around jobs every 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So I said, what about my client's job can keep you engaged for the longer term? So right away, he understood what I was talking about. You know, he cited buying a house for his parents in Southern California and the extreme anguish that he endured during the relatively recent wildfires there that were so devastating. And he basically is convinced, he said, I'm really convinced that timely and accurate weather warnings that were better in terms of accuracy and timeliness could have saved a lot more property and perhaps more lives.
Yep.
And there's some evidence that maybe a few dozen lives were lost, but in actuality, there were several hundred lives that were lost for indirect reasons related to this horrible event. And he was kind of, I don't know if I said this, but he was on the verge of tears, talking about what the improvement would have meant to him personally, and how he could have managed that situation and helped his parents in doing so. So he vowed to me, one day, I'm going to engineer the perfect weather warning forecast, the perfect weather warning forecast. And he said that purpose is going to keep me engaged with this company for the foreseeable future. So I still have some doubts about this guy based on past behavior. But what he said to me really kind of, it was moving to me. And it really kind of emphasized the why that was important to him and why this could sustain his service to this company for the longer term, and made me feel a little bit comfortable, more comfortable.
But let's talk about that for a minute, because that's why you are the person that does the evaluation, as I would. See, when I hear something like that, there's a psychological impact that explains why somebody would job hop.
Right.
Because people are not fulfilled. When you have somebody that has a personal why to something, and we see this over and over and over again, they become as loyal as your 13-year-old dog. They really do. And there's a reason for it. And so sometimes as job hirers, we have to evaluate that.
Really should.
We do. And based on talking to you about this, I've changed the way I'm going to interview for 2 positions in the company. One is our sales position. Because if they don't have the why, and they call themselves, in sales, they call themselves closers.
Mm-hmm.
It's not enough anymore.
No.
Right?
I know what you're going to, I think I know what you're going to say, because I know what I'm going to say, but I want to hear
why don't you say it? Because this changes the landscape of what you do.
Right.
It really does. And your job is tougher now than it's ever been. The good news for the public listening to this, Dr. Mickey has a heart and compassion, and you're able to look at that why and understand the importance of it. But the fear is that people that are out there doing what you're doing, and especially not what you're doing, you're not a recruiter, recruiters are losing sight of this. They're just going by the quantitative. Right. And I don't think we can do that anymore, because when you're talking about SBO, when you're talking about skills levels, you have to ask, Dr. Mickey, you and I showed you a study the other day. The average years a skill lasts now in this world of careers is 2.5.
The life cycle of a
Life
skill.
cycle of a skill.
Yeah, really
So
cool,
if
interesting.
if we're into a year and a half later and I don't see you doing anything to really stay on the top of the industry, what does it say? So you, Dr. Mickey, and what you do,
I'm
you're the
sorry.
one,
I'm afraid of this question.
you no, but what you're doing is you're using a skill that most people in your position don't have. They don't look at the qualitative. And I'm sorry, if we're not going to look at both in the world, we're going to have psychological contracts that get broken,
Right,
obligations that don't get met because people don't have the passion to do what they say they're going to do. There's my last thing I'm going to
right,
say today.
right. Well, if you have that purpose, you talked about sales, you don't have to close as much because people are going to want to buy.
Exactly. Boom. Come on over
Boom.
here and do this for me. Come on.
Yeah,
You come
exactly.
on over here and interview some of these people for me. No, and here, Dr. Mickey, and Jessica's listening to this, so I'm going to blame you. I went through the list in Indeed, and I looked at people differently.
Mhm.
I really did. Even if they had only two of the like matching skill thingies,
Right,
I
right,
looked at some of the jobs they had.
right.
And one of the people was like a lifeguard. Now, we would never look at somebody that's a lifeguard, but something caught my attention. So, can you talk about the ups and downs of skill-based organization hiring and what you, Dr. Mickey, are incorporated in what you do?
Well, I'm definitely looking for the why. That's for sure. I don't want to leave that because I think it's important. But I think I and they have to the hiring managers have to frame questions that they're really understanding the quality of people, not just the quantity stuff, as you say. And like I said last week, in this kind of environment, we're really looking for people for all seasons, both in terms of their technical and organizational skills and for their people skills combined. Looking for both, particularly the soft skills that are so hard, that are the social skills. Um, so we're looking for people for all seasons. And one of the things that I would do, and I would think hiring managers would do, particularly for skills-based organization, is to ask insightful and open-ended questions that make the candidate work and give you an opportunity to really see what that candidate is made of. I think those kinds of questions are really important. So I would expect you as an SBO or any company and the candidates to you to ask and candidates to expect questions of that nature and prepare themselves for those kinds of questions. Um, and my interviews certainly include that questions of that nature. Um, I would also, one of the things that I also do is ask, and we did that on one of our shows, Dr. Pat, I ask intellectual questions in three key areas: pragmatics, conceptual, and mathematics. And I expect and then candidates they have to respond in kind, orally to me. So I expect their answers to be competitive against the general population standards and management standards or professional standards. And I expect them to deliver their answers with confidence and with minimum needs for me to coach them. Because according to the rules of the test that I give, I can coach, but I don't want to do it excessively. Okay. I want candidates to be able to stand up to a little bit of a stiff breeze here. So I expect them to come across as knowledgeable, but also as confident and without a lot of needs for support, because that doesn't exist as much today. Okay. Um, and what I'm looking for, and we've talked about this in other episodes, what I'm looking for, my assessments that I give, my standard tests to tell me, and my interview to tell me, is I want to know whether a candidate is persistent, diligent, resilient, and adaptable. I want to know if they can respond to an interruption without getting bent out of shape. especially if they have to change course to meet the need of their companies. They need to be able to enjoy and feel comfortable with variation in their workload and change, and purposeful and results oriented, but able to operate and with ambiguity and loosely defined situations. Can they maintain their focus on results, the bigger picture and core priorities without getting distracted by stuff? And can they be inquisitive and curious and maybe even a little bit imaginative? So I'm looking for that. And on the people side, and again, I use formal testing and interviewing. And by the way, the formal tests are more reliable than the interviewing. But I do look for empathy in this kind of a work environment or career environment. I want people to understand and adjust to people's feelings and reactions, and to be able to say that they understand or acknowledge them without being positive and not judgmental. Can you be sufficiently assertive, more tolerant than critical, likable but willing to navigate conflict? And I want sound integrity. We talked about that last week.
We did.
People that do what they say they're going to do, and people that, once they agree to follow direction, they do it in a reliable way, in an effective way, and can acknowledge, be honest, particularly about their mistakes and what they learn from them, and having a positive outlook on human nature and individual differences, more humble than self-centered or arrogant.
Yeah.
Now, these qualities are really important for collaborative cultures, for people that add value to a team and not detract from a team. And I'm sure they're endemic in a lot. These kinds of qualities are needed in skills-based organizations. It's not just the skills, it's these qualities that make people really effective in companies and enable people to win rather than lose in companies of this nature.
Yeah. So, Dr. Mickey, I want to make sure, thank you for today. It really shows the important how, one, you're staying on the edge of your own skill-based learning in hiring these people. So thank you for that. How do people find out about you, Dr. Mickey? How do they get a hold of you?
Oh, how do they find out about me?
You.
www.deltaconsultants.com. You can look me up on LinkedIn, Dr. Mickey Feinberg, Fineberg, and you can email me if you dare, Mickey, Mickey @deltaconsultants.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Mickey. Thank you so much for everything today. And, for those of you out there, this is an ongoing conversation. This is Dr. Mickey, who is an expert in this field, and I want all of you to know that. Stay tuned next time Dr. Mickey and I are together, because we're going to continue the conversation, because the world of employment and hiring is changing as we speak. And I'm not kidding. For those of you out there that are going on interviews, if you don't know what AI stands for, or are not aware of how the company that's hiring you is using it, please do your homework. Please get out there. Please look, do your own research so you can show up as the best candidate for the job. Thank you, Dr. Mickey.
You got it.
Thank you all. We'll see you next time.
Listening to Inside the Mind of Hiring with me, Dr. Mickey Feinberg. Tune in the first and third Tuesday at 11 on Transformation Talk Radio to discover the psychology of making successful hiring decisions. In each episode, hiring managers and HR pros will learn how to leverage assessments and other key screening sources and avoid common pitfalls. Job seekers will gain insight into successfully presenting themselves. For more information on assessing people for mission-critical jobs and on career assessment and coaching, visit deltaconsultants.com and my LinkedIn profile. If you'd like to write me personally, it's Mickey, Mickey, @deltaconsultants.com.